Yes, we are live.
Hello.
Hi, Niko. Welcome. We are very happy to host you. One of our Startup Istanbul interview series, which we have been doing for a couple of months. I mean, from the beginning of the outbreak, we have postponed Startup Istanbul April edition. So we wanted to add value to the startups and entrepreneurs. And we wanted to invite very valuable names, and you are one of them. We have met you at Startup Turkey in Antalya. I remember the dates. And you have done amazing jobs, and you have deep experience now on the startups. And as I read your bio, you started as an investor, right? I mean, you weren't an entrepreneur, but I mean, your background is completely investor. So should you tell us about briefly about your background?
Totally. And thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be back. I think last time was in person in Antalya, which was a phenomenal conference. So thank you for giving me the opportunity once again. My background. So I was made in Greece, grew up between Greece and the UK. And as a young student in Greece, I studied electrical and computer engineering. The only way out, at least now, and I'm dating myself 15 years ago, was to try and study overseas. So I tried to go and do a PhD in biomedical signal processing, but this turned out to be a terrible personality fit for me, because working at a lab with the same few people and having this extreme dedication to author one paper every 3 years that gets published at a good publication was not the best fit for my personality. So ran away from there and that world. I ended up spending a year working in Tokyo for a large Japanese industrial automation company. And over there, for the first time, I saw the future with mobile and applications and the magical world of what you could do with your phone if it's internet connected. But I decided as a young Greek that was too young, to be working full time. So went back to school. So went to Cambridge in the UK in 2008, 2009. It was the first time I got exposed to startups. So growing up in Greece in the 90s and the 2000s, I don't think I've ever, met anybody in my circles that wanted to be a founder of a tech startup or was eager to join one. So in Cambridge in the UK, I met for the first time some tech founders. But back then was also a different time. And I realized back then that the most ambitious of those founders had to go to Silicon Valley, either to raise capital, find customers, recruit executive team members, sell their businesses. It's not the same today that Silicon Valley is a mindset, but back then, this is what brought me or made me, come to the Valley. I ended up spending a year at Stanford initially as a graduate student. And, by the time I arrived here in 2009, the iPhone was 1 year old, the App Store had just launched, and the rest is history. I joined GC a year later when we're getting started, our firm, Jerome Catalyst, here in the Bay Area. The firm was 10 years old at the time, but I joined right when we were getting started with our Silicon Valley office. And it was a great time back then because it was the beginning of the current wave. And I think, over the last 10, 11 years, we've had a good run till March, a few months ago when our world changed. But yes, I've been almost 10 years as a venture capitalist, which is insane to even reflect myself, right? Because I'm a millennial, I'm 35 years old. I don't know many of my other friends, who are millennials and have been with one employer for almost 10 years, I sound like my parents or my grandparents' generation. Yeah.
So also, you mentioned about the General Catalyst, I mean, the venture capital fund that you are working. Should you give us also brief information, what kind of startups to invest, or what are the ticket size?
Totally.
You have a huge portfolio, by the way. We should talk about some success and failures.
Yeah, absolutely. So GC has been around for 20 years now. We are a multi-stage venture capital firm. We have offices in San Francisco, New York, and Boston. Not that it matters now that everybody's working from home or is an entrepreneur from home. We also have raised over $7.5 billion across 10 funds during our history, and write checks that range from $500,000 to $100 million plus from us. So true multi-stage investor. The roots of the firm are in our early stage practice. That's how we got started. And we are in the business of partnering with ridiculously ambitious founders who want to build category-defining companies. A lot of the founders we invest in are first-timers. About 30% of them were born overseas, or 20% of them even got started overseas. So we don't check people's passports. We don't care how they look like. We don't care much about what they did before. All we care is about that level of ambition that I described, to shoot for the moon, and their ability to learn. So very quickly, especially if they're a first-timer, they can become a domain expert on whatever new they're building. Me personally, I've invested mostly on the early stage side of things, and I'll use VC buzzwords to describe the kind of projects I'm interested in. The first bucket is in the future of work. In essence, helping people make more money and be more lazy. And this could be a vertical labor marketplace. This could be SMB tools for solopreneurs to help them run their business in a box and benefit from all the good stuff that digital tools have to offer, as well as some more futuristic things that now clearly is more mainstream, enabling remote work and productivity tools. So, for example, I've invested in a distributed team called remote.com that's offering global payroll, onboarding, compliance for distributed companies and their remote talent. And the second bucket of companies and projects I invest in is in whatever the cool kids are doing online, again, to use VC buzzwords. So this could be products that are helping create or capture new online behaviors. And in the beginning, they look stupid, they sound controversial, they seem to be annoying. And over time, of course, they could become a mainstream movement or phenomenon. So over the years, I've had the pleasure to invest in cool projects like Discord, Snap, Sleeper, and many more. So maybe I stop here.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask the same thing. There are incredible companies in your portfolio, and I'm sure the audience would like to hear some of those stories. In which stages you invested in Airbnb, Stripe, or Monzo, etc. There are many well-known companies, and what was your role in investing in them?
Yeah, totally. So we are a partnership. We make decisions together. I am very, very excited to be in the same Zoom now. It used to be in the same room before with partners who are phenomenal former operators, CEOs, or legendary venture capitalists. So the collection of this diversity of thought is what lets us really get excited and understand how the future may look like when those incredible founders walk in the Zoom now. It used to be in the room before, and tell us about the future. So in the case of Monzo, my partner Adam Valkin, who I think both of you know because he was an invited speaker before at Startup Turkey. He was a very active investor before in Europe. He had known the Monzo founders from his time as a partner with Excel in Europe. And we saw the previous rounds, but at the time we're not very active investing in pure European companies. But starting in 2016, kind of changed that strategy, and we became a lot more active investing in European companies. And we came in and did a later stage round in Monzo. It's been a team effort. Our partner, Ken Chenault, who was the longtime former CEO of Amex, American Express, is closely working with Adam on Monjo, and Adam is on the board. In the case of Stripe, this is an interesting story. So my amazing partner, Hemant Taneja. So Hemant is based out of the San Francisco office with me, and he actually met Patrick, the co-founder CEO of Stripe, when he was a student at an entrepreneurship-related class that Hemant was helping teach at MIT. So, and this happened back in the 2010, 2011, roughly era. Patrick ended up dropping out, moved to the Bay Area, ended up doing YC for the second time. The first time they built something in e-commerce, had a small exit, but they saw how difficult it was to accept credit card payments online. And we got invested in the seed round alongside many other good folks. And then participated in the A, led the B, participated in the C, and then have led a few of their later stage rounds as well. So Stripe is a pretty big position for us right now, and it's helping power global commerce, especially in a world where e-commerce acceleration over the last few months has covered enough ground that otherwise we would have to wait for 5 years to see the penetration increase. Stripe and companies like them are tremendously benefiting from the positive tailwinds. What else? Airbnb, since you asked about them. So my partner Joel, who is probably the best travel investor in the world, he put together companies like Kayak that we help incubate at GC, for example. He heard about them in the late 2000s through his travel network. But at the time, GC was not based out of California. So we essentially missed out on the first round, the seed round that happened after the YC demo day with Sequoia leading it. So he heard about it right at the time when they were close to doing the follow-on round with Greylock. And this is when we got really excited and tried, a few times back then to make the case and invest in them immediately after that round. So whenever the next round happened is when we came in, and I think it was the $1 billion round. And unfortunately, at the time we're not writing growth checks. So if only, we were writing a lot more growth checks at the time, it could have been a much larger position. But Airbnb, although it's suffering now, it's certainly one of the category defining companies that changed the way how people travel, make money, etc. And our amazing partner, Ken Chenault, is on their board. So this is just some of the companies we've invested in. We love all our kids equally. We have 150 active portfolios. We have about 10 partners. Yeah. Burak, you wanted to ask me something? VCs love talking about themselves, so I can continue the monologue.
You have mentioned that, yes. So these are great startups. So what are the common features of startups, or what are the common attributes of the entrepreneurs while you are selecting these ones? For example, you invested Snap. What was the reason that you invested probably in early stages, not in the IPO, but one of the earlier investors? Was it the founder's passion, or about the market, about the team? There are lots of cliche examples when this question is asked. What do you look for?
Yeah, so if it's really early stage, basically you only have the founders, right? It's a founder or 2 or 3 or 4 of them. So it's all about them because they don't have a product yet, or if they have one, it's probably crappy. and maybe they have some early metrics. So if it's like really early stage, like seed or an early A, it's all about how we think of the founder. So are they insanely ambitious? Can they learn really quickly to become the world domain experts? And they treat every meeting, customer interaction as a learning opportunity? Do they have the ability to have a following? In other words, do they have like a long list of individuals who want to come and join them? Are they savvy with networking and getting in front of important people, for example, other entrepreneurs who get stuff done for them for free? Like I remember, like Evan Spiegel, he was like an undergrad at Stanford, the founder of Snap, and he was hanging out with the founders of Intuit and the senior executives at Google who are doing stuff, for like a student team for free because they like hanging out with Evan. So these are just some of the attributes we're looking into, some unique insights. It's often easier if you're a first timer and you're solving something for yourself. It's easier for you to have that unique set of insights in order to build a differentiated product. Are you obsessed with the customer? Like if we enter a meeting and we find ourselves know more about that customer, it's probably not a good sign. If there are any metrics, would love the founders to be pretty fluent with the metrics. Like if they don't really have a good picture at the daily basis, how things are going. Also, probably that room for improvement, and also would make us, be less excited to do something aggressive early on. So it's not one thing, and different people at GC, different partners are picking up on different, nuances. For example, if we have like a team of 3 come in and present now, and we're all in the same room and the body language between the 3 of them is not good, they're arguing with each other in the room as they're pitching the VCs, or instead of finishing each other's sentences, they're saying different things, right? We'll be like, we're not sure this is a team that they're going to last together. Yeah, just to give you a few ideas.
These are the red flags, I think.
Yeah, but also in the beginning, I mentioned to you, like, some of the things we deeply care about. One of the last things to mention is ability to tell a story, which is a proxy for their ability to raise more capital down the road, get the press excited. And some of the founders have that unique ability to come up with a very crisp vision that still 5 to 10 years later is part of what they would put into the S1 if the company goes public. So companies, for example, like Stripe, companies like ClassDojo, companies like Livongo Health, companies like Snap, the founders had a very crystal clear vision of how the world is going to look like in the future. Few founders have that ability, but whenever you see that, you're like, oh my God, this is so unique. I feel so greedy. I have FOMO. I should be part of that, in case they're right.
What kind of sources are you using to reach those startups or to find those startups? I'm sure you have a huge deal flow also after all of those investments, but do you prefer to get to know startups through referrals or through events, or what kind of sources are you using?
Yeah, great question. So it's not a silver bullet or like one thing that we do that really, is the core channel. It's a combination of many different tactics, many different strategies, and each one of us at the partners level, we have like our own individual aura and strengths when it comes to sourcing. So in its core, for me, what works really well is essentially referrals from the now many thousands of founders that I've met over the years. And I was not annoying to them because I say no 99.5% of the times. So whenever they're starting their new company, people reaching out, or whenever they're doing, they know a friend of theirs who is doing a startup, they're reaching out. So that's one source. The second one is me constantly cold emailing 5 to 10 people every week, either because they're doing something in the space that I'm exploring right now, like creator monetization opportunities. I'm looking into it right now, or helping people find jobs and get back into the workplace. That's another area I'm looking into right now. So alongside our team, we're scouting the universe and we're reaching out to individuals there. Then we're in constant contact with our portfolio founders, some angel investors, other early investors who are friendlies, and they share really interesting opportunities with us. And they make intros or we reach out. So it's a combination of things. And 50% of what we invest in is thematic, as I mentioned. Like there's certain areas that each one of us is exploring at any given moment in time. And the other 50% is opportunistic. Like maybe you'll tell me about a co-founder that you just met that you can't get out of your head, right? And I'll be like, that's awesome. I'd love to meet her.
Great.
And with this great portfolio, huge portfolio, did you miss any great startups and you didn't invest, which means anti-portfolio? Do you have a list of anti-portfolio companies, and do you regret to miss them?
Oh, yes. We have a pretty well curated anti-portfolio. This includes the likes of companies like Wish.com, includes the likes of companies like Flexport, Tinder. It's a very long and really cool list. The trick, though, is that your portfolio is at least as good, as your anti-portfolio. That's part of the trick. And also, we have the benefit of being a multi-stage investor. So if for whatever reason, we miss out on an early round, or because we didn't get it, or we lose it to another investor, we'll always have the ability to, invest later on. But for sure, there are so many good examples of founders that we did not invest in the beginning. So that's why it matters a lot to always make a good impression, treat people with respect, say no's really quickly, and try to provide some good feedback, along the way if you can.
If you want, let's talk about the coronavirus a bit and the outbreak. How did it change things in general Catalyst? Are you still planning to invest in some companies this year also? And have you changed any areas of investments just to be more active in those corona days, for example?
Totally. So obviously, the corona market situation is a really interesting one. It's unique. I don't think anybody in our lifetimes has experienced something like that. So it changes the game quite a bit. There are certain sectors that are immensely benefiting from it. So I would say in these sectors, it's more or less business as usual. So are you in telehealth? Are you in online education? Are you in e-commerce? Are you in enterprise security? Are you doing new interesting things in online media? Just to name a few of the sectors. Or you're a part of the critical infrastructure, like the essential, infrastructure for like food and supply chain, then you're doing great, right? This is like the best of all times. You've been waiting for this moment. So over there, I would say if you're a founder in these spaces, raise money right now, or probably you've already raised over the last couple of months. Now, if you're a founder in the world of travel, SMB, anything more or less, offline, unfortunately, it's been tough luck. It's been really tough luck. And what you have to be doing there is try to extend your runway for as much longer as you can. And if there is an interested party now, or somebody who couldn't get into the previous round, now's the time to warm them up and make an exception so you can increase your runway with their new capital. So at GC, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've invested in a couple of Series A's. We've also invested in 8 seed rounds. We have also invested quite a bit of capital in later stage rounds in companies like Stripe, Samsara in our portfolio, and other marquee assets, legendary companies that will be around because they're already, like amazing businesses. So yes, we are active. I'm personally looking into a couple of Series A opportunities right now. I've invested in one seed stage company since COVID myself. So it is an interesting time now to be active in the marketplace. So there are companies that are haves because they're in the good spaces that I mentioned that are getting accelerated, and there are others that are have-nots because, in April or in May, revenue went down to zero or 60, 70% down of what it was before. So over there, you need to have a very specific thesis of why you should be coming in right now. So it's nuanced.
Niko, there is a question from the audience, Amy Cosper from Colorado. She asked about what is the mood of founders during the pandemic? Has anything changed with creativity, ideas, and startups? Globally, what are your observations?
Honestly, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for new entrants in the world of startups. Because are you somebody who is in high school? Are you somebody who is a college student? Are you somebody who is working from home for a big company, but actually you're not really working as hard as you were before? Chances are, your opportunity cost is pretty low. So you should be thinking about new ideas. You should be thinking about how your future plans are changing and realize that your future plans might have already, changed. So I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of this incredible creativity that's now in its very early phases manifest itself in new startups, ideas and companies that are getting started. It's very similar to back in the late 2000s when the beginnings of cloud computing, open source software, GitHub, the iPhone, the App Stores, the distribution model empowered mostly, first-time founders really to do plenty of damage with ideas that didn't require capital to get distributed. So very excited about that. The other thing I'm very excited about is now that Silicon Valley is a mindset, you don't need to be here in order to get started. You don't need to be here in order to do interesting things. And each one of us is behind our computer screen. You can reach out to any one of us. So if you're a founder outside of the Valley or outside of any of the major hubs, you know what? For the first time, you are at no disadvantage, literally, compared to somebody who's in the Valley. Because yes, I'm in SF, I'm right by South Park, where all the capital gets raised. But you know what? I'm 5 minutes away, haven't been there in 3 months. So what is my advantage of being here? I have no advantage. If anything, if I'm a founder here, my cost structure is ridiculous. So are you somebody who can raise $5 million and you have a distributed team and you have a Silicon Valley mindset and can reach out to all the cool people whenever you need? Freaking awesome. Because with $5 million and a distributed team, you can have runway for 4 years. Whereas, a team locally here would have runway Series A stage, for 12 to 18 months max. So these are the two things I'm very excited about right now.
And do you think that the whole economy about the investment and internet economy will shift, or is there a decrease in total investment amount in next month?
Yes, so this is already happening. There is a decrease in the number of new investments that are happening. Part of it is because in the beginning of the Corona situation, a lot of us had to be a lot more internal looking, try to see what's going on with the portfolio, who do we want to support, what changes, we may want to influence. That's one. Two, it's harder for a lot of people to be making investments remotely. Like that idea of like meeting the founders in the same room. It's
lost its connection.
It's a tricky one. So some people have not been accustomed with the idea of making investments online.
I'm having trouble understanding.
Sorry, my Alexa is going crazy. I don't know what's going on. The reality of working from home. And then, third thing I would say is that actually the bulk of the pain, we haven't felt it yet. Like the bulk of the pain we're going to feel in from Q4 onwards, when companies will be going out to raise capital, and who knows if they're going to be raising, an up round, a down round, a flat round, or no round, right? When probably the economy is going to be in a recession, and the appetite from investors will change. So I do anticipate the number of new deals to come down quite a bit.
A follow-up question: how do you think should startups survive this period? Because there are a lot of actually sectors that, like travel, etc., who were affected really strongly because of this outbreak. And what do you recommend to entrepreneurs actually to survive?
Yeah, that's a question that's top of mind for all the founders and their investors alike. So, as one of my ancestors in Greece, once said that necessity is the mother of all invention. This is the time now to be creative. And you know what? If you had a plan before and you're in a sector that get deeply impacted, scratch it, really, and come up with new ideas, because yes, there is a lot of pain and suffering, but I'm sure there's some new opportunities. So job number one is immediately and over time, as you're monitoring the situation, try to increase your runway. So try to do a little bit of zero-based accounting over a week. I'm sure there's so many stupid software subscriptions that you picked up over time. Renege them, cancel them. Do you really need an office? If yes, so large or smaller? Now is the time to rethink about that. Is it a great opportunity for you to go distributed, and the next hires you want to make are going to be remote and overseas, so they're not going to be probably as expensive as if you were to hire them out of New York? That's another strategy. If you have to make the tough decisions on cutting your existing employee pool, do it sooner rather than later with respect, because every month that goes by, that's probably the bulk of your cost. If you're in a sector that there's no customer demand, dramatically cut down your marketing budget. Or if you're in a sector where you got to meet and greet your customers, you have a very heavy enterprise sales component, and you meet a lot of those customers at conferences, offline, and steak dinners, things probably are not going to be going back to normal for a while. So you got to rethink. Do you how big of a team you need there, and what are the new tactics going to be? So I think hopefully over the last 3 months you've made some significant changes already. If not, now is the time to act, because there's never going to be a better time to act. Like cash is king or queen. And the only reason why startups fail is because they run out of money. Last thing to mention, which I hinted on before, do you have anybody in your network who is eager to give you money, or was eager to give you money before? That's the time to ping them and try to get some more gas in the tank in order to weather it out. Perhaps at a personal level, another comment to make, if you're not so sure that you want to weather this storm, get acqui-hired, because the next few years are going to be unlike everything that we've ever seen. So pivots may be necessary. Cutting the company more than once, meaning firing people, may be required. So if you don't have the stomach to do that for whatever reasons, I'm not judging. People need to be able to go through all these highs and lows. Now's the time to find a graceful exit. The big companies, as you might have seen, are making a bunch of small acqui-hires. All my friends at all the major big companies have pinged me over the last month. Hey, do you have any portfolio companies that are not sure about navigating COVID? We're looking for smart software engineers. Please introduce them to us. So that's a quick answer.
Niko, have you changed the inner process of your fund? I mean, which means, are you doing investment committees on Zoom, or how do you process the investment decisions?
Yeah, good question. We have the benefit of having been distributed because of the 3 office locations. So we've always been running on video, making decisions together ever since I joined the firm like 10 years ago now. So in that regard, no change. Where there has been, change is in founders that we haven't met before, in founders that we don't have many shared touch points. We increase our due diligence, meaning we might do a virtual dinner, with them. We'll do more referencing on them. We'll talk to more customers than normal. So we increase our diligence in that way. In order to make sure, we get a better feel for the founders and the people we're getting in business with. But as a group, always at GC, quite a few of us don't meet the founders in person, because if they're based out of, New York or Europe or India, a couple of people would have met them, but everybody else would have just, said hi on video, right? And that's in your reality. So I'm personally, very excited about that.
And Niko, when was the last time you visited Istanbul? And I'm curious about if you have invested in Turkish companies, startups, or like in the startups in the emerging markets. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening to us today from South Asia to Middle East, from North Africa. So I'm sure they are also wondering your answer.
Yeah, totally. So last time I visited Istanbul was about 5 years ago. So I'm dying to come back. Like the food there is amazing. The views are phenomenal. Most importantly, the people have warm hearts and they're always, so gracious and nice. I've actually personally invested in a couple of entrepreneurs, actually different companies that were started by Turkish founders. One of them has talent in New York and in Turkey, and they're in the consumer social space. And then the other one is a team based out of here in SF, and they're helping freelancers make more money as well as run themselves as businesses. It's a team that came out of Udemy, which is one of the most well-known companies that were founded by a Turkish founder here in SF, and they also had a large presence in Turkey. There's a Series A stage founder that I'm looking into right now, who's also from Turkey. So clearly, since last time, I visited Istanbul, I've made a lot of progress investing in Turkish, founders. I've invested, frankly, in more Turkish founders than Greek founders. I haven't invested in Greek founders. So that's pretty cool in my mind. In terms of us investing in companies that get started in Turkey or North Africa or the Middle East, yeah, we're open for business. But we want these companies and those founders to be targeting a global audience or customer base from day one. If they're just doing e-commerce for Egypt, it's not going to be as exciting for us, we're unlikely to be a good fit. Also, in terms of stage, we would do something at the seed stage opportunistically. We would do something in the Series B or later stage. At the Series A, it's a little bit of a hyper-local game. So unless you're a truly distributed team and you plan to be forever, it's trickier, for us to come in and do a Series A round. So that's the quick answer.
Thank you. So we'll be happy to welcome you back in Istanbul, hopefully after these Corona days.
So coming...
Absolutely.
So coming to the end of our interview, Niko, I would like to ask a couple of different questions. Have you cooked in last 2 months?
Yes. So, my wife, Alexia, and I, over the last almost, 3 months now, since basically early March, we've been cooking pretty much every day. I think we've ordered takeout 5 times. So coming from the old world, coming from Greece, cooking is core part of our DNA. I think she's like 1,000 times more talented than me, obviously, but it's one of the lifelong skills, that I personally help hone more. So that's one of the positive, I would say, things about Corona for me personally. So yeah, we love cooking food. That's how communicate to each other. That's how we exercise our creativity. It's one of the great pleasures, in our relationship and marriage.
You are very passionate, Niko. What motivates you to wake up in the morning?
Oh, what I do is such a unique privilege. Like every day I'm meeting with immensely talented and passionate people who are so eager to change the world, and sometimes they get it right. So I'm just a curious mind who wants to dream alongside the founders that we work with, or the prospective founders that we may end up working with. And every few years, just have one more household brand or category defining business in our portfolio. I find this, thrilling, because you never know, the next meeting you have could be that person, right? And I always very distinctly remember the first meeting I have with founders that we end up investing in.
Great. Thank you very much, Niko, for being with us today. It was a very great interview. I'm sure the audience also will be happy to hear you. And thank you again for today's meeting. And we hope to see you back in Istanbul, hopefully in October.
Niko,
or
thank you very much.
Next time.
Of course. Thank you both too. Alif, thank you. Burak, thank you. It's been great privilege to be back on the show. Yeah, honestly, any excuse I can have to be back in our neck of the woods, I am thrilled, I'm thrilled.
Niko, thank you. Have a great day over there.
Too.
Thank you very much.
Have a great
Stay
evening.
safe
and
and
thanks
healthy.
everybody for the attention. Thank you. Bye.